Hello and welcome back to the shop. I was just reflecting, when I first got into sharpening saw chain, I was doing it by hand on the Granberg, and I remember asking to have people bring the saw with the chain. One reason was because with the Granberg tool it had to be on the bar. The other reason was because when you get the bar, you can look at what's printed on it and you can see all of the, or at least the type of chain it is, and then you could look up the angles from that in theory. I have since evolved to using a powered system, the Super Jolly, and for a while with that, I remember asking like what saw it came off, and then going to this chart that came with the Super Jolly, and then going online and trying to find the compatible chain to match it to the chart to try to get all the angles. And I remember that it never made any sense. The reason is because when you, like over here, there's a Oregon, Windsor, Sarp, Carlton, Steel, EM, and you get a Husqvarna chain in, and you go like, well, all right, so what's the Husqvarna, the Oregon, what's the equivalent? So that I can go find that chain on the, I'm looking at the chart here, on the Oregon side, find out what Oregon chain it is, and then match it up to these. And then even though there are 50 types of chain listed on here, they never matched. And there's the M21LP. Yeah, but what about the M23SR? And like, it was like, it didn't fit almost all the time, right? And maybe you've experienced that. And I just wanted to, like, I just want to tell you, like, I put this away. I don't use it anymore. I actually had to go find it because I don't need that. I don't use it anymore. Here's what I do. Step one is to find the drive link gauge, like how wide the drive link is. And for that, I got this tool, the pitch and gauge tool. It's a little plastic flimsy thing, and the only thing I actually use it for is the drive link gauge sitting over here, and I just take the drive link and like, okay, it's not 50, okay, 58. All right, done. And then on the Super Jolly, and I imagine it's kind of the same on all of them, like the Oregon and whatever else one, you just set the 58 right there. Okay, what's next? Before we go into the next part, I feel like there needs to be a little PSA, a public service announcement, and I'm just recalling some videos that I did on saw chain sharpening during the Thursday night grind. And there's a lot of people who are interested in saw chain sharpening, and some of the feedback from those videos after having some time to continue to work on this tool and work on saw chain and think about it were maybe a little more misleading than they could be. One that comes to mind is some criticisms of the Super Jolly, in that when you go from sharpening one side of the chain to the other side of the chain, the grinder doesn't fall exactly on the same place on the chain. And I don't think that's necessarily a fault of the Super Jolly. It's a fault of any sharpener that is this style. And this is like a sharpener you can purchase it for hundreds of dollars. And if you want to get past that, I think you're into like tens of thousands of dollars for a sharpener. And then the difference, so like, it's not a fair criticism of the Super Jolly. It would be a criticism of sharpeners in this, on this scale. And then the other thing is like, does it really matter, right? And like I remember one guy was saying he puts calipers on the teeth to make sure they're the same size. And I just want to kind of, I don't think it's necessary. And I'm trying to think it through, like if I were sharpening for like people competing in the steel timberman competition and like fractions of seconds matter, then maybe that matters. But the reality is I don't sharpen for those people. I sharpen for the dude with a saw in the backyard, and he doesn't care. Same thing with like raker heights and stuff. Like, I don't know. Here's the thing, man. Like, it's just like, some of this stuff maybe doesn't matter as much as some people make it out to be, especially on YouTube, or, where people go to seek information. And my concern is that by getting hung up on these things, like how many thousandths of an inch can the raker be from the tooth in height? I feel like when we nitpick over that stuff, we just add confusion and we don't actually help people. So as I go through how I'm doing my angles on the teeth, you can nitpick it if you want, that's fine. I just want to offer this to everybody else who might find some information in the comments to take those nitpicking comments with a grain of salt and just carry on. The next angle here is the top plate angle, which is like the angle that the tool slices into the chain at. And Super Jolly has like one angle, 55 degrees highlighted, and that's what I use. And as I was going through like the chart here, like every saw chain is either 55 or 60 degrees on the chart provided, and then the question is kind of to my last point, like for homeboy in the backyard, like limbing a tree that fell in his driveway, is he gonna complain that the top plate angle was 5 degrees too much or too little? No. Okay, so it's cool, 55 degrees. Okay, the next angle is the vise angle, which is this one here, right? So this one I actually give a little more scrutiny to, but I default to 30. I go to 30, and then I'll bring I was just doing rakers, hold on a sec. I'll bring I'll take a look. I'll bring this, the grinder down, and I'll look at the tooth and how it lines up with how the tooth is. And I'll eyeball it, and like, it was 30. All right, it's 30. Like, sometimes it's 25, and when you're eyeballing it, you can see it, that's not right. It needs to go this way a little more. Okay, and even though the tooth is worn, like, I get the point. And then on the back of a lot of these teeth, they have a line, and then what you can do is after you go down at what you feel is right, take a look at that line, look at it real close with your eye and see, like, is that right? Or does it need to go a little bit one way or the other? And then you can, sometimes it's 20, 25, mostly, it's almost always 30. Okay, so again, to the same thing, like, I won't, if I did my own saw at 5, right, 30, 25, you put me out back sawing through a oak log, and I'm not going to know. I wouldn't be able to tell you. So it probably doesn't matter as much as some people like to make it out to. The other point, which I don't know how well you can see, is how worn these teeth are. Like, the people that I serve to get as much life out of these teeth as they can before they bring them to me. So even if I did not meet the exact manufacturer specification for this, whether it's 25 or 30 degrees, it's gonna cut way better when they get it back. I think the last one here is the tilt angle, which is given by this gauge down here. And I have developed a rule of thumb, courtesy of a comment on my YouTube channel. And that is where, what I do is when I have a semi-chisel tooth, I can show you here if I can. This one's actually a chisel tooth. But when this edge is a square, like this one is, if I can get that for you. That was pretty close. When that edge is square, I'll call that a chisel tooth, and I'm going to do it at a 10-degree tilt angle, which I set down here, and you change that for what side of the tooth you're working on. So you have to, when you change your vise to go to the other side, you also change your tilt angle. And when it's a semi-chisel tooth, meaning it's slightly rounded here, which I don't have in front of, yeah, actually I do have one. See how that one's rounded? That is not a sharp square corner on that tooth. It's rounded a bit. Semi-chisel tooth, I use a 0-degree tilt angle. That's my rule of thumb. And by using those rules of thumb, I don't have to look at a chart. Okay, so my hope there is that with a $3 pitch and gauge tool and a couple rules of thumb and just some basic time and experience and looking closely, you can proceed with your saw chain sharpening with confidence. I did just want to scroll through this chart real quick to make sure I got them all. Chain pitch I didn't measure. There's one case where it might matter a little bit. Vise angle we covered, top plate angle we covered, tilt angle we covered. Depth gauge is almost all 25 thousandths. There's one, when you get up into 404 chain, 404 pitch chain, sometime you can go to the 30, again, oh, I didn't show you, I measure that using that same pitch and gauge tool to see how, that's how deep to cut the rakers. Wheel width we didn't discuss, but I always use the 1/8 wheel, again, because I pretty much never get 404 chain, but if I did, I do have the other wheel. And here's the thing, like if I got 404 chain, I'd be like, whoa, it would catch my attention. So I would know to do that. And, okay, so we did it. I'll show you for the, just to be thorough, how I measure the raker height. Back at the pitch and gauge tool here, there's a little lip my fingernail's catching on. It's small, it's 25 thousandths, it's small. But you know, it's 25 thousandths on that side, 30 thousandths on this side. And what I do when I'm doing the raker is I put the other grinding wheel on, and then I'll cut a raker down and I'll measure across the teeth here. Just set this on, pull this all the way up, and just touch it. Like, okay, got to go down a little more, and then just make it till it's that height, right? So like this one, you see how it's catching? Well, that's 30. This will be a 25 thousandths tooth. It's still catching. We haven't even, all right, so we're gonna cut both of these teeth back. As they go back, they're gonna get lower. That raker needs to get taken down so that it'll cut nice. Like that's it. All right, so now we've, hopefully that, I wasn't watching the camera. Yeah, all right, hopefully you see that. Let me focus it. See that? 25 thousandths from tooth to tooth. Whew, okay. That's it. That's it. That is how to measure and understand angles when sharpening saw chain. I hope that has been valuable for you, and I will see you next week for the next Hot Tip Tuesday.